What's up, nerds? I'm Solar Polar Bear, and welcome to my series. This is where I'll determine how much money I would spend on a game based on 4 preset categories. And I hate long intros, so let's begin. Just as a heads up guys, there may be minor spoilers in this video. Today we're looking into Cyberpunk 2077, the long-awaited action role-playing game based in the Cyberpunk universe by CD Projekt Red. The categories I chose today are basic but simple: audiovisual, gameplay, immersion, and optimization. We'll be totaling it up and giving you a price I would pay based on that. Let's jump on in. Audiovisual. Right out of the gate, I was astonished with the atmosphere the game provided. There was not a single moment I wasn't in awe observing the world around me. Sidewalks are alight with signs and abuzz with advertisements. The streets are filled with gilded pedestrians and rugged custom vehicles. Night City itself is a combination of labyrinthian streets and imposing buildings, and the city really looks and feels the part. The soundtrack feels very well put together, and while I could make an entire review on just the quality of the radio tracks, we all know which one I'm talking about. The game does make up for it in its original score. The sounds of the city are something else. Next time you're done with a gig, go to a rooftop and listen to everything around you. Car engines growling down below, a heated argument between pedestrians, the afterburner of an aerial vehicle above, NCPD sirens echoing off nearby buildings, and maybe some dude shooting up the next block. They put a lot of work into the audio, and despite some of Keanu's lines feeling a bit dry,
test of a person's true value: death. Facing it, staring it down. You still got a chance to be somebody.
It all meshes well together to accent a living world. I'm absolutely in love with characters' facial movements. It all feels so natural and a breath of fresh air in comparison to stiff-lipped Skyrim NPCs. And when I looked into why that was, it turns out CDPR is utilizing a tech called Jolly, or jaw and lip integration, which automatically generates an animation template based on audio it analyzes. And that's really freaking cool.
Damn it.
The game in RTX looks gorgeous. And lighting is just one of those features where you either get it right or you get it wrong. They got it right. The shadows, the lighting, the reflections, everything is stitched together to form this realistic world. And I'm so hooked on it. Cybernetics is one thing I really want to touch on. In this universe they built, everyone is walking around with so many attachments, and most of which are visible on their person, and almost all of these look organic and feel natural. Eyes, arms, legs, everything they crafted is real to me. And it doesn't feel like they just chose to staple metal to models or just recolor arms to cut corners. But it feels like they put a lot of work to bring attention to the cybernetic accessories everyone wears. I could spend an entire day just roving around Night City, taking the sights, the sounds. Hell, I could spend hours ranting on it. But we're going to touch on one more point before we move on, and that's the system you're playing this on. Now, I play this on a PC, and I have a mid to high-end PC. I'm well aware older PCs don't have the luxury of playing this with max settings, as well as I am more than aware that the previous gen consoles can't even run this. So take that with a grain of salt. I have not tried this on console. Overall for this category, I would give it a 9.2 out of 10. It's solid for newer end rigs and consoles, and it's a gorgeous looking and sounding game. Our next category, gameplay. Melee combat is satisfying. And while it's not a game built primarily off of melee combat, it's still fun as hell. And I found myself on multiple occasions just relying solely on my katana, only to pick stragglers off with a rifle as my secondary. My original build was supposed to be shotguns, but that changed as I began to adapt to the game. And shit, I just unlocked Mantis Blades, and those are fun as hell. Bang. All the quests that I was involved in, fantastic. I had a blast. When I was going through Act 1, I didn't find a single moment where I wasn't having fun. One second I was chucking grenades over chest-high walls. The next I'm holding my breath as I sneak up on someone else. And that's not before I disabled all the cameras in the room and I snuck through a passcoded door. After that, I'm diving off a rooftop to assassinate someone below as the last patrol passes. There is simply so much fun to be had by approaching a mission and executing it. Following the main story, dialogue is intuitive and allows for a lot of control. You can end up going down a completely different path if you just choose a different dialogue option, which I find is way more intuitive than your generic Skyrim RPG. Gunplay is pretty satisfying and I enjoy it. I find myself constantly switching guns and trying new things out instead of just sticking to the same old routine. The skill trees are really neat and I enjoyed working towards a build that catered to my gameplay style. But the fun stops there. Police AI, garbage. When they spawn behind me in an alleyway, or just stop following me after I got done running 12 people over, like all I did was shoplift, there's a problem. AI in general is pretty garbage as well. There are times I just point a gun at a hallway and kill people as they funnel out in a single file line. I even found an exploit in a very hard gig, where I would just jump onto the balcony, throw 400 grenades inside, and when someone would run at me, I would just double jump to the roof. And then the AI would just path back inside and stand still. Then after that, I found out I could even shoot through the ceiling at them, leading me to beat many missions just by getting on the roof and shooting down. If I cut some random pedestrian down, I'll watch as everyone scatters and just ducks down on the floor after running for 5 feet. It's like that's gonna save them from more gunfire. You would think that a city that prides itself on the Second Amendment would actually fight back when you do something like that, instead of just running and panicking. Aside from key NPCs, interaction with anything else feels lackluster. Pedestrians just tell you to fuck off if you run into them, and then they do nothing else. People in vehicles are a whole other ballgame, where they don't even drive around you if you stand in the way. I spent my first 15 minutes on the streets of Night City, standing in the road just to test the AI. And I found it pretty amusing that I was just able to stand on the windshield of a vehicle and no one would do anything, not even the driver. The background choices have little to no impact on anything other than optional dialogue. I really wish in a role-playing game that our background choices actually mattered, instead of just pulling a Fallout 4 and unlocking pointless dialogue options that made no real difference at all and all ended at the same point. While I said I liked the skill trees, I felt like there was something missing. A few skill trees focus mainly on utilizing a specific arm cybernetic as your end goal. Mantis Blade, Monowire, Shooty Arms, Anchor Arms, but I feel like that's it. It stops there. Everything just eventually ends at those 4 cybernetics. You would think in a game where cybernetics were a huge focus, there would be way more options for your build. And on the topic of cybernetics, I'm thoroughly disappointed that none of the cybernetics really had a visual impact. Yeah, there's obviously the main 4 that change up how your arms look, but what happened to me looking into the mirror and seeing my whole face upgraded with strange components? Or looking down at my legs and seeing a set of robotic joints and wires tipped with a single spike at the feet, specialized for running and climbing. It seems like everyone else around me has such interesting cybernetics, and then there's just me. Smooth skin, mantis arms, hairy legs. I'm holding more of this back for immersion. Oh, and another thing, why the fuck can't I customize my character after character creation? You're telling me that in a Cyberpunk universe where everything is customizable, I can't change my fucking hair color. I can't even pay eddies to change my gender? What the fuck, CDPR? Driving is horrid, and yeah, I did get used to it, but Night City must be covered in layers of ice. Because as soon as I hit that gas, I'm sliding around worse than a southerner on first snowfall. And believe me, I understand they're trying to add realism here. There's no reason I can take a sharp left going 94 miles an hour without hitting everything. But that's not the point. The point is that I don't want to feel like I'm driving on black ice. All in all, the good gameplay moments are just outshined by the absence of defining features in a cyberpunk universe, which make for short bursts of fun gameplay drowned out by lacking features. 5 out of 10. 6 out of 10 if they let me change my hairstyle after character creation. On to immersion. I've always loved sci-fi. When I started picking up tabletop role-playing, some of my favorite systems were Shadowrun, Eclipse Phase, and Traveler. There's something about a setting where you can customize just about anything on your person, down to gutting your internal organs in favor of a more efficient metallic counterpart. It really speaks to me on another level. In the subgenre of cyberpunk, your whole goal is improvement and survival. Your body is just a commodity, and sooner or later, your basic-ass human parts are going to need a replacement to function better. And this was a huge hook that dragged me into Cyberpunk 2077. Prior to the game's release, I daydreamed about all the different ways I could modify myself. I would create these characters in my mind, a Corvo assassin who wants to modify herself until there's no human left, or a socialite man with gender dysphoria, enhancing everything to look beautiful. But instead, the realization kicked in as soon as I began playing through the game. V was not following my story. I was following V's story. And this isn't a bad thing. The game sucked me into its atmosphere quite easily. And soon, I stopped daydreaming about these characters and started figuring out how I was going to solve V's problems. It's a telltale sign when a game rips you out of your own fantasy and successfully implants you into their fantasy, and CDPR does a really good job at telling their story. I would consider Cyberpunk 2077 one of the better storytelling games over the past few years, as it manages to provoke me in many ways to a plethora of decisions it forces me to make. And I do feel like a lot of it makes a difference in the world around me. But sadly, it all stops at the major quest lines.
Yeah, well, getting more and more used to that.
CDPR presented their game to us as, in Cyberpunk, your choices matter. But I feel like that only covers the main storyline. Most side quests do a decent job at giving you a decision to make, but none of it really matters. None of it shapes the world. For example, I took up a quest to get rid of a gang leader, and when I successfully removed him and his crew from the building, more people showed up to kill me. After I exterminated their entire group out front of the storage unit, nothing changed. The city continued to live and breathe. The gang did not come down on me with a hammer of judgment. Instead, they remained the same, still committing their petty crimes on the street, still harassing me when I'd walk by, and nothing was different after I killed a major player in their game. And it doesn't stop there with murder being the ultimate decider in choices.
Yes, I know.
My background really didn't change much as far as dialogue goes, and despite anything I would choose, it would still end me in the same place as I would have without that option. Most side quests have little to no impact, and you're pretty much forced into following a rail to finish that quest. What you choose to do during that quest might net you more eddies, but that's it. Even if I make a decision to slaughter everyone on the side of the road, the cops start chasing me and eventually I get away. Nothing in the world changes. No one knows of my notoriety, and no one starts dialogue with my character regarding my previous mass murder. Everything is the same, regardless of what you do outside of the main storyline. Hell, let me talk about something that really breaks my immersion. Shit just spawning right in front of you. Commit a crime, cops just appear out of thin air. Turn too quickly around the world, cars drop from predetermined spawn locations on the road. Running through the streets, pedestrians just suddenly appear. And I'm on an SSD right now, and stuff shouldn't just be spawning in front of me. I'm not saying it's a rampant problem, but when I get done doing a quest, and all of a sudden I watch as people despawn in front of me, then respawn, along with cars on the road, it really just breaks your immersion. Touching on a previous topic, cybernetics. Why do only a few cybernetics have any sort of physical appearance on V? I feel sort of ripped off that everyone and their mother has neat augmentations, and then there's me. Oh look, hands, mantis arms. These people of silver and gold just outshine me, and my skin pales in comparison. At the end of the day, when my V looks in the mirror, the only thing I really feel is jealousy. The looted pieces of armor are a joke. I find myself on multiple occasions favoring a bicycle helmet and hot pants for their armor stat over an armored set of pants and a combat helmet. It just reminds me of how games like World of Warcraft used to just throw pieces of armor at you, and you'd have to piece together some off-colored suit that made you look like you just raided a Goodwill. Meanwhile, every NPC around you is dressed appropriately to the scene. All NPCs I come into contact with in Cyberpunk are clad in golds, silvers, face pieces, leg enhancements, arm enhancements. What happened to me becoming Atom Smasher, who's 96% machine and 4% meat? What happened to me dressing like the V they showed in the preview videos? Add a damn cosmetic slot, please! Let me rewind a bit and focus on some good. Because at this point, it sounds like I'm just shitting all over the game in this category, and I am. But there's some good here, trust me. Night City feels alive. There is so much going on that you feel like everything is happening with or without you. We come from a generation where Oblivion and Skyrim cities felt alive, but all they were was static and almost uncanny. NPCs would walk right up to your face, say some useless dialogue like, "Be seeing ya," and then walk off in this crooked pathing sort of way. Instead, there's droves of people on the street going about their business. Cars and trucks populate the streets. Look up next time you play and watch aircraft zoom by while their afterburners echo off of nearby buildings. It feels alive. And yeah, sure, half of them don't even interact with you.
No estoy de humor.
The cars don't even drive around you, and if you run in front of them, they just hit you and stop. No one comes out and asks if you're alright. If you fire your weapon, they run and duck 5 feet away from you. And honestly, I don't feel like that's really organic. All that aside, I feel like the world is lived in, but it's just the surface. Outside of the main quest, the polished exterior conceals a broken and lacking subsurface of issues that pull you from your seat and leave you wondering why that's happening. I would give it a 6 out of 10. They did a good job storytelling, but I feel like they forgot how an actual city functions. If cops could teleport, society would be a weird place. And finally, onto optimization.
So I'm gonna continue. Bang.
No, for real. This launch was horrible. And I've seen some bad games. Hell, I play Star Citizen, and that game is more buggy than anything. You could just be standing still and the floor will eat you. But seriously, holy shit is this poorly optimized. I feel like a lot of people forget who we're dealing with though. In 2015, CDPR released The Witcher 3, and just to remind everyone, that shit was buggy as fuck. The game had such critical reception early on that they had to redo things like combat and the inventory system, just to make their fanbase happy. And now, look at its achievements. 4 Game of the Year Awards, Best Gaming Moment Award, Best Storytelling Award, Best Visual Design Award, Best RPG Award, Outstanding Achievement in Story Award, Outstanding Technical Achievement Award, Outstanding Achievement in Game Design Award, Best Technology Award, Excellence in Technical Achievement Award, Excellence in Visual Achievement Award, and an Excellence in Narrative Award. And by no means does this make up for a shitty launch, or suddenly forgive CDPR for their handling of Cyberpunk, or even make this playable on last-gen consoles. But it just goes to show that the company, more or less, will end up fixing so many issues with the game that it'll actually be playable now. This is hoping that CDPR doesn't go completely bankrupt due to numerous lawsuits. For optimization, I'd have to give category 1 out of... At the end of the day, Cyberpunk 2077 is getting a shitload of flack. Its release was garbage, they delayed the game 3 times, they cut numerous features, and you know what? I'm still having fun and enjoying myself. I'm seeing hotfixes roll in, fixing critical issues, and I don't feel like refunding it. But let's get to the point we've been waiting for. How much would I pay for the game based on these categories?
Contact!
Well, I would actually pay a solid $40 for it. I've got plenty of hours sunk in, and despite the bugs, I still find myself coming back to it. By no means do I think we need to accept the handling of this game, but we're basically in this mindset now that we're used to games releasing like this. It's sort of a social norm in today's environment to push out a game and just deal with the fallout. We have games like Ark Survival Evolved, Atlas, No Man's Sky, Star Wars Battlefront, The Witcher 3, Star Wars Squadrons, Fallout 76, Star Wars Battlefront 2, and Star Citizen, and a bunch more which just released with issues and are still dealing with damage control. But people play them and still enjoy them. And at the end of the day, that's the one thing that matters. Are you enjoying the game? Are you having fun? If not, why haven't you just refunded it yet? Anyways, until next time, I'm Solar Polar Bear, stay frosty.